All right, so you're here because you want to get right to the good stuff, right? You want to know what matters, and you want to know it now without all the extra stuff.
Exactly.
That's what we're all about, right?
Yeah.
And today, we're going to take a deep dive into a pretty crucial part of air travel, even though we don't really think about it much.
Yeah.
Aircraft brake systems.
It's one of those things you don't think about until you need it.
Right, yeah. You only notice it when it's not working.
Exactly.
But think about it. Every safe landing you've ever had, I mean,
Yeah.
you got to thank the brake systems for that.
Big time. Yeah. And we've been looking at this really interesting article from Cognitive Market Research
Oh, yeah.
that goes deep into this whole industry, which is actually growing like crazy, and it's super competitive.
Yeah, it's way bigger than I thought it was going to be.
Oh, yeah.
So that's exactly what we're going to do for you today.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to try to pull out all the most important insights, about all the big players, who's doing what, and all the trends that are shaping the market. And we're going to try to do it without,
Yeah. Boy.
boring you with all the super technical details.
You can get pretty in the weeds.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Just to give you a sense of the scale of this whole thing, we're talking about a sector that's worth something like $9 billion
Wow.
in 2023. And it's projected to hit over $20 billion
Huge.
by 2032.
Wow.
That's a compound annual growth rate of 8.5%.
That's serious growth.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
So you can tell that things are moving really fast in this area.
Well, and I think when you think about it, right, it makes sense. You've got the number of people flying is going up all over the world.
Yeah.
And then you've got safety regulations are always getting tighter, pushing for, even more advanced technology.
Right, right.
And then on top of that, you've got just constant innovation happening in the brake systems themselves.
Right. Yeah, there's always somebody trying to build a better brake.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's no surprise that this market is booming.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this report actually pinpoints all the leading companies in the industry.
Oh.
The real powerhouses are the ones who are really driving things forward.
Gotcha.
They've identified the top 5 companies.
Okay.
And we're going to take a closer look at each one of these.
All right, sounds good.
So are you ready for the list?
Lay it on me.
All right, so we've got Honeywell International Incorporated,
Right.
Safran Landing Systems,
Right.
Raytheon Technologies Corporation,
Okay.
Parker Hannifin Corporation,
Right.
and Crane Aerospace and Electronics.
Okay, so those are like the big 5 in the brake world.
Yeah, these are the giants right now.
Gotcha.
It is important to remember, though, that the market's always changing.
Oh, for sure.
And there are other companies out there,
Oh, yeah?
smaller companies that are coming up, and they could be the big players of tomorrow.
Yeah. We'll have to keep an eye on them.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to talk about some of those emerging players a little bit later.
Okay, cool.
But first, let's start with the big dog, Honeywell International Incorporated.
All right.
These guys are a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, they're big.
In 2023, their total sales were something like $14.5 billion.
Billion with a B.
Billion with a B. That is correct. And a big chunk of that $2.2 billion
Wow.
came straight from their aircraft brake systems.
So they're really invested in this market then.
Yeah, that gives them a market share of about 15%.
That's a big chunk.
Yeah, it's a pretty big slice of the pie.
Yeah.
One of the things that really stands out about Honeywell is how much they emphasize research and development.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. It seems like they're always on the cutting edge of technology.
Yeah, they're always pushing the boundaries and trying to come up with the next big thing,
Yeah.
which is really impressive.
Absolutely.
So, they're not just resting on their laurels, they're really trying to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah, and it seems like that approach is really paying off for them. What's fascinating is how that commitment to R&D actually translates into real-world benefits for their customers.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, they sell around 5,000 brake systems every year.
Wow, that's a lot of brakes.
It is, and the majority of them, something like 70%, are these advanced carbon brakes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and this shift towards carbon brakes, that's a pretty clear sign that the whole industry is moving towards lighter and more efficient materials.
Makes sense. I mean, lighter weight generally means better fuel efficiency.
Exactly.
Which is honestly a huge concern for airlines.
Absolutely, every pound counts
Yeah.
when you're trying to save money on fuel.
Right.
And when you look at the actual performance figures, it really makes you understand why airlines are choosing these advanced brakes.
Yeah, what kind of numbers are we talking about?
Well, Honeywell's carbon brakes have a 25% longer average maintenance interval.
Oh, wow. So that means less downtime for the airlines?
Exactly. And for airlines, that translates into big savings on maintenance costs
Right.
and less time that their planes are out of service.
Right, because a plane that's not flying is not making money. So
Exactly.
that's a huge advantage.
Yeah. And on top of that, they can actually reduce the distance a plane needs to roll to a stop after landing by about 20%.
Wow. So shorter landing rolls, that's got to be good for safety and efficiency at busy airports.
Absolutely. It means they can get planes off the runway faster.
Yeah.
And that helps to keep things moving smoothly.
And probably less wear and tear on the brakes themselves.
You got it.
It's win-win.
Yeah. And then there's the thermal efficiency, which is basically how well the brakes can handle heat.
Right. Heat dissipation, that's critical for safety.
Oh, yeah. Especially during rapid descents or, if they have to do multiple landings in a short period of time.
Right. Like in an emergency situation or something.
Exactly.
So how much better are these carbon brakes in terms of thermal efficiency?
Well, Honeywell's carbon brakes, they've got about 30% better thermal efficiency compared to older models.
That's a huge improvement.
It is. And, these aren't just small incremental changes. These are big leaps forward that have a real impact on how airlines can operate and how much money they can save.
Right. So it's not just about, making a slightly better brake. It's about making a brake that can actually transform the way airlines do business.
Precisely. And that's a big part of why Honeywell is so successful.
And they're not just focused on making better brakes. They're also looking at ways to make the whole system smarter.
Oh, yeah. How so?
They're integrating artificial intelligence, AI, and the Internet of Things, IoT, all the buzzwords.
Right. All the cutting edge tech.
Yeah, all the cutting edge tech into their braking systems.
Oh, wow. So what does that actually look like in practice?
Well, just imagine you have a braking system that can not only perform at a really high level, but can also predict when it needs maintenance.
Oh, wow. So you could avoid those unexpected breakdowns and delays.
Exactly. You can do preventative maintenance instead of reactive maintenance.
That'd be huge for airlines.
Yeah, it would save them a ton of money and a ton of headaches.
Absolutely.
And Honeywell's not stopping there. They've also launched an upgraded carbon brake system
Oh, really?
that's specifically designed to last even longer.
Wow. So even better than the ones they already have.
Yeah, they're really raising the bar.
That's impressive.
And this new system is even better at managing heat, which is, always a concern with brakes.
Right. You don't want your brakes to overheat.
Exactly, especially when you're landing a giant airplane.
For sure.
So it's clear that Honeywell is really focused on addressing the key concerns that airlines have when it comes to braking systems.
Yeah, they're definitely listening to their customers.
Yeah, and they're not just focused on the technical side of things either. They're also investing in sustainable materials and processes.
Oh, wow. So they're thinking about the environmental impact as well.
Yeah, they're trying to be as eco-friendly as possible.
Good for them.
Yeah, it's good business and it's good for the planet.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're really taking a long-term view of the industry and their role in it.
It sounds like they're ticking all the boxes.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of things right, and the market is definitely taking notice.
Yeah.
In 2023, they secured a major contract to supply over 200 brake systems to a major airline.
Wow, that's a huge deal.
Yeah, it's a real vote of confidence in their technology and their capabilities.
Absolutely.
And to top it all off, they won the 2023 Aerospace Technology Award for their innovative smart sensors.
Wow. So they're getting recognized for their innovations too.
Yeah, they're definitely a company to watch in this space.
For sure.
So let's move on to the next big player in the aircraft braking world, Safran Landing Systems.
All right, let's hear about Safran.
They're a subsidiary of the larger Safran Group, and they specialize in something really interesting.
Oh, what's that?
They focus on the entire landing and braking system of an aircraft.
Oh, wow. So not just the brakes themselves, but the whole shebang.
Exactly. The legs, the wheels, the brakes, everything that touches the runway when a plane lands.
That's pretty comprehensive.
Yeah, they've really carved out a niche for themselves in that area.
It makes sense.
Yep, right.
All those components have to work together seamlessly.
Exactly. It's all interconnected.
Yeah.
And because of that, Safran has built a really strong reputation for reliability, durability, and top-notch performance.
Yeah, I've heard good things about them. They're known for making really solid equipment.
Yeah, they're kind of the gold standard in the industry.
Yeah.
And that's why they're trusted by so many major aircraft manufacturers and airlines all over the world.
Makes sense. If you're building a plane, you want to use the best components you can get.
Exactly. You don't want to cut corners when it comes to safety.
Absolutely not.
So Safran has a pretty significant global presence. They operate in over 20 countries.
Wow. That's a lot of ground to cover.
Yeah, and they have over 7,000 employees worldwide.
So they're a pretty big employer as well.
Yeah, they're a major player in the aerospace industry.
Yeah.
In 2023, their total revenue was $10.2 billion.
Okay. Still a huge number.
Yeah, and of that, $1.1 billion came specifically from their aircraft brake system business.
Okay, so they're definitely a major force in the brake market.
Yeah, that gives them a market share of about 10.5%.
Not quite as big as Honeywell, but still a pretty significant chunk.
Yeah, they're definitely one of the top dogs.
Yeah.
One thing that's really notable about Safran is their comprehensive approach to the market.
What do you mean by that?
Well, they don't just focus on one type of brake or one aspect of the system. They offer a wide range of integrated landing and braking solutions.
Oh, okay. So they're kind of like a one-stop shop for all your landing gear needs.
Exactly. And they invest heavily in research and development, just like Honeywell.
So they're always looking for ways to improve their products.
Yeah, they're constantly innovating and pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
That's great.
And they're also really focused on sustainability, which is becoming more and more important in the aviation industry.
Yeah, for sure. Airlines are under a lot of pressure to reduce their environmental impact. So what are some of the things Safran is doing in terms of sustainability?
Well, they've made some big strides in developing more eco-friendly brake systems.
Oh, that's interesting. How do they make a brake system more eco-friendly?
Well, it's all about using more sustainable materials and designing the systems to be more efficient.
So less waste and lower emissions.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And they're also working closely with major airlines to figure out how to make their products even better.
So it's a collaborative effort.
Yeah, they're really trying to be partners with their customers.
I like that approach.
Yeah, it's definitely a smart way to do business.
Yeah, for sure.
So Safran is a company that's really focused on the big picture.
Yeah, they're not just thinking about the brakes, they're thinking about the entire landing system and how it can be made safer, more efficient, and more sustainable.
Exactly. And that holistic view is a big part of what makes them so successful.
And it's probably what helps them stay ahead of the curve in terms of innovation.
Yeah, for sure. They're always thinking about the next big thing.
All right, so we've covered Honeywell and Safran, two of the giants in the aircraft braking world.
Yeah, who's next on the list?
Well, let's move on to Raytheon Technologies Corporation.
Raytheon. Okay, so they're a big name in the defense industry, right?
Yeah, they are. They're actually a relatively new company formed in 2020 through a merger of Raytheon Company and United Technologies Corporation.
Okay, so they've got a pretty solid background in both aerospace and defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And that gives them a huge advantage when it comes to developing advanced technologies for things like aircraft braking systems.
Right, because a lot of the technology that's used in military aircraft eventually trickles down to commercial aircraft.
Exactly.
So what kind of expertise does Raytheon bring to the table when it comes to braking systems?
Well, their expertise is pretty extensive. They cover everything from the control systems and actuators, which are like the brains and muscles of the system,
Okay.
to the actual brake discs themselves, both carbon and steel. And they make systems for both commercial and military aircraft.
So they've got a pretty diverse portfolio then.
Yeah, they do. And one of their key strengths is their focus on high-performance carbon braking systems.
Carbon brakes again. So that seems to be the trend in the industry.
Yeah, it is. And Raytheon is right there on the cutting edge of that technology.
And are they investing heavily in research and development as well?
Absolutely. They're putting a lot of resources into developing new and innovative braking solutions.
So they're not just relying on their existing technology, they're always looking to improve.
Exactly. And they're another company with a global reach. They operate in over 40 countries.
Okay, so they're up there with Honeywell and Safran in terms of their global footprint.
Yeah, for sure. They're a truly global player.
So in 2023, their total sales were $7.6 billion,
Okay.
and their aircraft braking system division brought in $1.3 billion of that.
So a smaller overall company than Honeywell or Safran, but still a significant chunk of change coming from braking systems.
Yeah, it's a big part of their business.
And they're not just sitting back and watching the market evolve. They're actively pushing for innovation.
What kind of innovations are they working on?
Well, one notable example is their DuraCure carbon brake discs.
Okay, I'm guessing those are some high-tech brakes.
Yeah, they're designed for extreme performance and durability.
So they can handle the stress of repeated high-energy stops.
That's exactly.
Which is obviously essential for aircraft.
Yeah, you don't want your brakes to fail when you're landing a plane.
No kidding.
And another thing that's really interesting about Raytheon is their strategic vision.
What do you mean by that?
Well, they're not just focused on making the best brakes. They're also thinking about how they can make their products more sustainable and how they can position themselves for the future of the aviation industry.
So they're taking a long-term view.
Exactly.
I like that.
And a good example of that is their acquisition of Blue Canyon Technologies.
Okay, I'm not familiar with them. What do they do?
They specialize in small satellites and related technologies.
Okay, so not directly related to brakes.
Not directly, but the acquisition shows that Raytheon is thinking about the bigger picture and how they can leverage new technologies to improve their products and services.
So they're thinking about things like space travel and how that might intersect with the aviation industry in the future.
Exactly. They're not just focused on the here, and now they're looking ahead to what's next.
So they're trying to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah, they're definitely a company to watch.
Okay, so we've covered Honeywell, Safran, and Raytheon, all big companies with global reach and a strong focus on innovation.
Yep. What's next?
All right, so the next company on our list is Parker-Hannifin Corporation.
Parker-Hannifin. Okay, I've heard of them.
Yeah, they've been around for a while. They were founded way back in 1917.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah, they're one of the old guard in the motion and control technology sector.
Motion and control technology, so not just brakes.
No, they make all sorts of things: valves, actuators, filters, pumps, you name it.
So they're pretty diversified then.
Yeah, they've got a really broad portfolio of products and technologies. But aircraft braking systems are a key part of their business.
Okay, so they're not just dabbling in brakes. They're serious about it.
Yeah, they're one of the major players in the market.
So what makes their brake systems stand out?
Well, they really focus on high-performance braking systems.
High performance. So they're all about making brakes that can handle the toughest conditions.
Exactly. They make both steel and carbon brakes.
Okay, so they've got options for different types of aircraft and different operating environments?
Yeah, and they also make the control systems and the anti-skid technologies that go along with the brakes.
Anti-skid technology. That's crucial for safety, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The anti-skid system prevents the wheels from locking up during hard braking.
Right, because if the wheels lock up, you lose control of the aircraft.
Exactly. It can lead to a skid or even a spin.
Not good.
No, not good at all. So the anti-skid system is essential for maintaining control of the aircraft during emergency braking situations.
So Parker-Hannifin's got that covered.
Yeah, they're one of the leaders in anti-skid technology. And they make these systems for both military and commercial aircraft.
So they're well-versed in the needs of both sectors.
Yeah, they've got a lot of experience working with different types of aircraft and different operational requirements.
And what about their approach to innovation? Are they keeping up with the latest trends in braking technology?
Absolutely. One of their core strengths is their deep engineering expertise.
So they really know their stuff.
Yeah, they've got a really strong team of engineers who are constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
And are they committed to innovation? Like, are they investing in research and development?
Oh yeah, big time. They're always looking for ways to improve their products, and they're not afraid to try new things.
That's good to hear.
And that commitment to innovation has led to some really impressive advancements in braking technology.
Like what?
Well, one example is their work on lightweight braking systems.
Lightweight brakes. So that would help with fuel efficiency, right?
Exactly. Lighter brakes mean less weight for the aircraft to carry, which means it burns less fuel.
And that's good for the environment and for the airline's bottom line.
Yeah, it's a win-win.
So Parker-Hannifin's definitely on the right track there.
Yeah, they're really trying to address the key challenges that the aviation industry is facing.
And how about their global presence? Are they a big international player?
Oh, yeah, they're huge. They operate in over 50 countries.
Wow, that's a lot of countries.
Yeah, they've got a truly global footprint, and they have over 300 production facilities around the world.
So they're not just selling brakes. They're making them all over the place.
Exactly. They've got a really impressive manufacturing and distribution network.
It sounds like they've got the whole world covered.
Yeah, they're pretty much everywhere.
So how did they perform financially in 2023?
Really well, actually. Their total sales were $5.7 billion.
Okay, still a big number.
Yeah, and their aircraft brake system business contributed $680 million to that total.
Okay, so a decent chunk of their business is coming from brakes.
Yeah, it's a significant portion.
And what's their market share like?
They've got about a 6% share of the market.
So not as big as Honeywell, Safran, or Raytheon, but still a respectable slice of the pie.
Yeah, they're definitely a force to be reckoned with.
So are they doing anything particularly innovative or interesting to stay competitive in this market?
Oh, yeah. They're constantly working on new things.
Like what?
Well, one of their recent advancements is in the area of carbon composite brake discs.
Carbon composite brake discs, so even lighter and stronger than regular carbon brakes.
Exactly. They're pushing the boundaries of what's possible with braking technology.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, and they're not just innovating on their own, they're also making strategic acquisitions to expand their capabilities.
Oh, really? Like who have they acquired?
Well, one notable acquisition was Lord Corporation.
Lord Corporation. What do they do?
They specialize in adhesives, coatings, and motion control technologies.
So that fits in nicely with Parker-Hannifin's existing portfolio.
Yeah, it was a really smart acquisition. It's allowed them to enhance their offerings in the aerospace sector.
So they're strengthening their position in the market.
Right. Exactly. They're making sure they stay ahead of the curve.
All right, so that's 4 of the big fives down. Who's the last one?
The last but certainly not least company on our list of top players is Crane Aerospace and Electronics.
Crane Aerospace and Electronics.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not as familiar with them as I am with the others. What's their story?
Well, they've also been around for a long time.
Like how long?
Since 1855.
Wow, 1855. That's going way back.
Yeah, they've got a really long history.
So they've seen a lot of changes in the aerospace industry.
Yeah, they've been around since the very early days of aviation.
So they must have a lot of experience under their belt.
Oh, yeah, tons of experience.
So what do they specialize in?
Well, they supply a wide range of systems and components for aerospace defense and even space applications.
Wow. So they're not just limited to aircraft. They're involved in all sorts of high-tech industries.
Yeah, they're a really diverse company.
So what about their braking systems? What are they known for?
Well, they're known for making really high-performance braking systems.
Okay, so they're up there with the other big players in terms of quality and performance?
Yeah, they're definitely a top-tier supplier.
And do they focus on any particular type of braking system?
They make a variety of systems, but they're especially well known for their work on landing gear.
Landing gear.
Yeah.
So they're kind of like Safran in that they focus on the whole system, not just the brakes.
Yeah, there's definitely some overlap there.
Okay.
But Crane also makes a lot of other things, like power management solutions and electronic systems.
So they're a pretty well-rounded company.
Yeah, they've got a lot to offer.
So what's their reputation like in the industry?
They're known for their expertise, their commitment to quality, and their innovative approach.
So they're kind of like the triple threat of the aerospace world.
Yeah, they've got all the bases covered.
Nice.
And that's why their products are so highly regarded. They're durable, precise, and they perform really well.
So they're reliable.
Yeah, you can count on Crane to deliver the goods.
And how about their global presence? Where do they operate?
They've got a presence in North America, Europe, and Asia.
Okay, so they're not as widespread as some of the other companies we've talked about, but they're still in the key markets.
Yeah, they're strategically located in the regions where there's the most demand for their products.
Makes sense.
So in 2023, their total revenue was $3.8 billion.
Okay.
And their aircraft brake system business brought in $152 million.
So a smaller portion of their overall revenue compared to some of the other companies.
Yeah, they're more diversified, so they're not as reliant on brakes as some of the other players.
Makes sense.
But they're still a significant force in the brake market.
And what's their market share?
They've got about a 4% share.
Okay, so they're the smallest of the top 5, but they're still a major player.
Yeah, they're definitely a company to keep an eye on.
So what are some of the things that Crane is doing to stay competitive in this market?
Well, one thing that's really interesting is their focus on smart braking systems.
Smart braking systems. What are those?
They're basically braking systems that are equipped with advanced sensors and monitoring capabilities.
So they can collect data on how the brakes are performing?
Exactly. And that data can be used to improve the design and operation of the brakes.
Oh, wow. So it's like having a little black box for your brakes.
Yeah, kind of like that.
So they can use that data to make the brakes even better.
Yeah, and to predict when maintenance might be needed.
So they can prevent problems before they happen.
Exactly. It's all about being proactive.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cutting-edge stuff.
And what else is Crane working on?
Well, they're also partnering with other companies to develop the next generation of braking systems.
The next generation. So what's next for brakes?
Well, one of the big areas of focus is on developing brakes for electric and hybrid aircraft.
Oh, right, because electric and hybrid aircraft have different braking requirements than traditional aircraft.
Exactly. They need brakes that can handle regenerative braking.
Regenerative braking.
Yeah. It's a way of capturing the energy that's normally lost during braking and using it to recharge the batteries.
Oh, wow. So it's like getting free energy.
Yeah, kind of. It's a really clever way to make electric aircraft more efficient.
So Crane is working on brakes that can do that.
Yeah, they're one of the companies that's at the forefront of this new technology.
That's really interesting. So they're really looking ahead to the future of aviation.
Yeah, they're definitely thinking about what's next.
Okay, so we've covered the top 5 players in the aircraft brake system market.
The giants of the industry.
Yeah, but what about those emerging players you mentioned earlier?
Oh, yeah, the up-and-comers.
The ones who are nipping at the heels of the big guys.
Exactly, the ones who could shake things up in the future.
Yeah, those are the ones I'm really curious about.
Okay, so the report highlights a few companies that are worth watching.
All right, hit me with the list.
Okay, so we've got Beringer Aero,
Beringer Aero.
And MATCO Manufacturing Incorporated,
Got it.
Grove Aircraft Landing Gear Systems Incorporated, JM Aerospace and Machine Incorporated,
Okay.
and AAR Corporation.
So 5 companies to watch.
Yeah, these are the ones that could potentially disrupt the market.
And what makes them so disruptive?
Well, each of them has their own unique strengths and strategies.
Okay, so let's take them one by one, starting with Beringer Aero. What's their deal?
They're based in France, and they're known for their innovative, lightweight carbon brake discs.
Carbon brake discs again.
Yeah.
So they're following the industry trend.
Yeah, but they're doing it with their own unique twist.
What's their twist?
They're really focused on using high-performance materials, and they're also expanding their presence in the Asia-Pacific region.
Okay, so they're targeting a high-growth market.
Exactly. They're trying to get in on the ground floor.
Smart move.
Yeah, and their focus on lightweight materials is really appealing to airlines that are looking to improve fuel efficiency.
Makes sense. Every little bit helps.
Yeah, so they're definitely a company to watch.
All right, what about MATCO Manufacturing?
They're based in the USA, and their strategy is all about cost effectiveness.
Cost effectiveness. So they're trying to undercut the big guys on price.
Yeah, they're aiming to be the budget-friendly option.
Okay, that could be a good strategy if they can maintain quality.
Yeah, that's the key, right?
Yeah, you don't want to compromise safety just to save a few bucks.
Absolutely. But Matika seems to have found a good balance. They're still investing in research and development to make sure their products are durable and perform well.
So they're not just cutting corners. They're actually trying to make good brakes at a lower price.
Exactly. And they're also forming strategic partnerships within the industry.
Okay, so they're teaming up with other companies to expand their reach and capabilities.
Yeah, it's a smart way to grow their business.
Absolutely.
So they're definitely a company to watch, especially for airlines that are looking for a more affordable option.
All right, what's next?
The next company is Grove Aircraft Landing Gear Systems.
Grove Aircraft. Okay, another one from the USA.
Yep. They're also focused on landing gear, but they're taking a more integrated approach.
Integrated approach. What does that mean?
Well, they're not just developing brakes, they're developing the whole landing gear system as one cohesive unit.
Oh, wow. So they're thinking about how all the components work together.
Exactly. They're looking at the big picture.
That's a pretty interesting approach.
Yeah, it's a little bit different from what the other companies are doing.
And what are they hoping to achieve with this integrated approach?
Well, their main goals are to improve safety and performance.
Okay, so those are pretty important goals.
Yeah, you could say that.
And how are they going about achieving those goals?
They're investing heavily in research and development.
Of course, got to stay ahead of the curve.
Yep, and they're really trying to push the boundaries of what's possible with landing gear technology.
So they're not afraid to try new things.
No, they're definitely innovators.
Right, so they're one to watch then.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, what about JM?